Chapter 17, page 72. Continuing from where we left off last week, which was with this big, heavy, loaded question, serious question about relationship, our relationship with Hashem. Because remember that the book of Tanya, or at least the first section of the book of Tanya, which is the section that we're learning, is based on a verse in the Torah that says, Ki karov eilecha hadavar ma'oid, that this thing is very close, very accessible, almost as if to say, very easy to achieve. What is this thing that is very easy to achieve? Love of Hashem. Well, on consideration, it doesn't seem to be all that easy or accessible. That was our big question. We said, how can you say that it is so accessible? It seems to be counterintuitive. Not just counterintuitive. It seems to actually go against everything about who we are. We are not beings who love the abstract. We are beings who love ourselves. I mean, not everybody likes to admit it, but the reality is that's pretty much who we are. And it's two completely opposite, opposing realities. Either you're going to care about self and about indulgence, or you're going to be willing to care about Hashem, but it doesn't really go together. So how can you tell me that this is something which is highly accessible? And the expression that the Alter Rebbe used was, it's neged hachush shelonu. It goes against our sentiment. It goes against our natural, instinctive being. How could you say such a thing? But that's not the end of the question. So if you thought that we're at the point now that we could start to answer the question, not yet. We still have to further elucidate, unpack, and deal in this particular case with a very important aspect of the question. Okay, so I'm going to pop it up on the screen for those who are looking online. And if you are looking in the book, page 72, and you are going to see that 4 lines from the bottom of the page, 4 lines from the bottom of the page on page 72, that's where you're going to see a little period, a little full stop, which is where we are. So what's the question? Oh, sorry, one other thing. Last week we said that the Gemara asked the question, is it easy for a person to be in awe of Hashem? And we said that the Gemara had to defend that because the Torah says, what does Hashem ask from you? Just to fear Him. And then we said, if that's difficult, love is much more difficult. Here's our question for today. Vegam, do you see that? Vegam. Vegam Omru Razal. Additionally, our sages taught that tzaddikim dafka libam birushusam, that the only people who are actually capable of controlling their hearts are tzaddikim. What does that mean?
Like we're far from it.
Of course it means that we're far from it. Well, what does it mean to control your heart? What does it mean to control your heart? To control, so can we not control our emotions? Are we not, if a person, for example, is getting all worked up, do we have no control?
Your reactions, your emotions.
So I'm saying, can we not control that?
No.
No? We cannot control it?
When we get angry, we get angry.
So is that it?
Very
We are
hard
just,
to control.
whatever comes, and everybody should just excuse us because unfortunately that's just me right now. I'm in that mood and you just got to live with it. Is that how we understand ourselves?
Tzaddikim have no...
Before we get to the tzaddik, let's just talk about us. Let's just talk about, before we get to that, let's just, no, that's a Beinoni. But let's just get to ourselves. Before we talk about this high level experience of the tzaddik, let's just talk about ourselves for a second. So do we not have the capacity for emotional control? Regulation. Let's use terms that are much more popular in today's world. Are we not capable of regulation?
We are.
Of course we are. Of course we are. That is one of the key distinguishing factors between animals and humans. Your animal could be excused for behaving according to its emotional state, its instinctive state. When you come home, sorry, let's try this differently. When your spouse comes home and the dog runs over and is so enthusiastic to see the spouse, you can't say to the dog, yeah, but, where were they the rest of the day? Now suddenly you're getting all enthusiastic. You can't reason with the dog and expect that it's going to curb its enthusiasm. Right? It's like all those people, whenever you go to a place where people have their dogs in public and there's somebody who's afraid of dogs, the dog owners will always say, don't worry, my dog doesn't bite. I don't know, how do you know? Did the dog sign a contract with you? Did the dog make a promise? I don't know. If you happen just to provoke the dog in a particular way, then the dog is going to have a reaction that is for lack of a better word, we'll call it an impulsive response. And that impulsive response it cannot control. You can't expect that you're going to poke, the kid goes and pokes the dog in the eye, and then the dog bites the kid and say, I thought your dog doesn't bite. I thought your kid doesn't poke dogs in the eye. Right? So it's like, that's the distinction between a human and an animal. It is absolutely unacceptable for a human being to ever say, but this is just the emotion, and therefore accept it. The whole objective of personal growth and mastery is to be able to control, regulate, breathe, redirect, manage. So what does it mean over here when it says that our sages tell us that only a tzaddik libam bireshusam, their heart is in their control? What does it mean it's in their control? Every one of us has the capacity, and we can prove it. Very simple. Very, very simple. Want me to prove it? Yeah. There is a bar mitzvah. And at the bar mitzvah, there is a dessert table. And at the dessert table, there happens to be your favorite dessert. Whatever that might be.
So I can't have.
Okay, so there you go. So it's chocolate mousse, it's some kind of an eclair, it's lemon meringue. I don't know what your thing is. So what's the heart saying?
Load up.
It's a bar mitzvah. Yeah, exactly. It's a simcha. Embrace it. Participate. You got to show the people that you're happy to be at their simcha, right? And it's probably a mitzvah to eat anyway because it's a simcha. So therefore, have another one. That's the heart. Can you control it?
Yeah.
Of course you can.
I have to.
Of course, that's basic humanity. Basic humanity. So that you don't follow your heart. Your heart might say, you see, okay, listen, to be perfectly honest, you see when the waiters come out, with those trays, you see some people behave in a little bit of a frenzy, because Nebuch, the Jews haven't eaten for 30 minutes or something like that. So there's this whole rush, and what are we going to do? But do you have the capacity to go? Of course you do. Here's another example. You're getting annoyed with somebody, and you're reaching boiling point, and it's going to spill over into something that you say that's going to be hurtful to them. And your heart's telling you, say it. They irritated you. It's what's coming to them. They deserve it. Can you avoid saying it? Of course you can. Of course you can. That's what it means to be a human. So what does it mean when the sages tell us, only tzaddikim libam bireshusam, only a tzaddik has their heart within their jurisdiction, within their control? Surely that's just part of the function of being human. So let's talk differently.
Do they never get angry?
Of course not. But let's talk differently. Imagine, and I'm sure you've either seen or experienced this kind of thing. Two kids are having a fight. They happen to be siblings. And the fight is off the charts. They are yelling and screaming and attacking each other, and it's completely out of control. You, as the responsible parent, you come into the room and you say, okay, that's it. You go sit in that corner. You go sit in that corner. Don't touch each other. Don't look at each other. You know how it is. Don't even look at each other. And then everybody calms down. And you tell your kids to apologize to each other.
But it was his fault.
Okay, but you get past that. You get them to the point they actually apologize to each other. All right? Is that feasible? Can I ask my kid to apologize? Of course I can. So what does the child do? So the child goes to the child and goes, sorry. So what does the parent say? That's not an apology. You have to mean it when you say it. But I don't mean it. What do you want from my life? I'm doing this because you have asked me to do it. I'm going through the protocol of the restitution of peace in the family. But I don't mean it. Can you tell somebody what to mean?
No.
Can you instruct somebody how they should feel? No. Here's a better one. Okay? Your Auntie Gertrude is coming to visit. Okay? Or make it better, your great aunt Gertrude is coming to visit. The great aunt Gertrude, who applies half a stick of red lipstick every single time she comes to your house. And she decides that she gives those big, slobbery, kisses and that leave an indelible mark that stays for at least 24 hours. So you tell your child, listen, Great Aunt Gertrude is coming. When she comes, you have to give her a hug and a kiss. Right? And your child is like, I don't want to go near her. I don't want to kiss her. I don't want to hug her. I don't want her to kiss me. Anything like that, right? So what do you tell your child? Tell the child, listen, Nepech, she's an older woman. She's lonely. She doesn't have grandchildren of her own. This is her naches. Just humor her. Allow her the opportunity. So the child's okay, fine. I'll go. Tolerate it. Won't have to see her till the next family simcha. That's acceptable, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell your child, no, you have to love Aunt Gertrude? Can you tell them? You can't tell them that. You can't tell somebody how to feel. Not how to feel in the moment. Of course, we have emotional spikes. That's the nature of the human being. We have emotional spikes. We have times of heightened emotion. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a sustained emotional approach to an individual or a concept. You cannot tell somebody, you have to love so-and-so. You have to love such and such. You can't say that. Not only do you not have the jurisdiction to tell them how they should feel in a deep, connected, sustainable way, they don't have that jurisdiction. Meaning to say, a person could learn, listen, it's very, very important to love your siblings. But this particular sibling is off the wall. So what do I want me to do? I cannot love them. Liboy birushusoi, to have your heart in your control means that you can change your emotional makeup, not your emotion. Every person can control with training their emotion in an emotional moment. But to change your emotional makeup, what things you love, which people you love, that you can't just say, I'm going to meditate on this and it's going to change. It's not that simple. So how do you tell me that korov ma'od, that it is extremely accessible and close to be able to love Hashem, when ultimately only a tzaddik has that level of mastery to effectively rewire their emotional footprint to be aligned with what Hashem wants, as opposed to what their natural emotional makeup is. We're not tzaddikim, we're nowhere close. How can you tell me it's close? Not only is it not close, it's reserved for the 0.1% of the population.
You can instruct them to emulate it, so you work towards it. The instruction is the end point. When you say to your child, I love Aunt Gertrude, what you mean is work towards it with the process, emulate the tzaddik, but you can't get there, but you can get
That's true. So effectively what you're saying is behave in such a way that illustrates love, even if you're not feeling it. That's fair.
But your process will change you anyway.
It may or it may not, but I mean, that's a valid point, right? Repetitive behaviors will change the way that we feel about things, as well as learning more about a person also will change our emotional state towards them. But that's not korov. That's not accessible. It's not close. Close implies it's easy. You just snap your fingers and it happens. You're talking about a lot of habituation and maturity and focus. Sure, with all that kind of thing, magic can happen. But korov ma'od, that it's very accessible, how? How is it very accessible? That's the burning question that drove everything we've been learning in Tanya until now. So it's about time we start answering the question. However, before we can answer the question, we have to remind ourselves what the question was related to. It was related to a particular verse in the Torah, and as is always the case in the Torah, you have to know the specific language that the Torah used, because everything is precise, and the language holds the answer, the secret to appreciating what the message really is. We can't do generic things over here, just to say there's this incredible ability to be able to love Hashem. Well, that's highly generic. Look at the verse and understand what the verse said. So let's go back to the verse. I mean, it's not, we can actually bring it up in front of us over here. So it was the first line of the chapter, so you can go back to the first line of the chapter, or here it is on the screen. Because this thing is very close to you, very accessible to you. We've defined that this thing is love of Hashem. And then the Torah continued with information that doesn't necessarily seem to speak the same language as love. What does it say? Be'ficha, it is accessible in your mouth. Or be'levavcha, and it is accessible in your heart. La asoy soy, in order that you should do it. Can you see that there's a switch in the grammar here? Every one of us can acknowledge that we operate in multiple arenas, right? So we're going to identify we have 3 arenas, which is thought, represented by the heart, speech, represented by the mouth, and action. How come it is that when this verse, which is telling us about our access to Hashem, when it describes thought, it doesn't say thought, it speaks about a part of the body, it says your heart. When it describes speech, it doesn't talk about speech, it describes a part of the body, it says your mouth. But when it comes to action, it doesn't describe a part of the body, it describes action. It's inconsistent. Either it should say, in your mouth, and in your heart, and in your whole being, because obviously behavior, action is something that is multifaceted and applies to your whole being. Or it should have said, to say, to think, and to do. But this is a mix. It says, in your mouth, and in your heart, to do. That's a clue. That's a really important clue. Because the Torah would not make an inconsistent statement unless embedded in that statement was key information for us to decode what's going on over here. So the key information lies in that switch from in your mouth and in your heart to the part that says to do it. La asoy soy, to do it. So let's brainstorm for a moment before we actually read it inside. What do you think the implication is of shifting from identifying the part of you that does it to the thing that you're doing?
This is potentiality and then activate. So
Okay.
the first 2 are potentiality, it's inherent. And the third one's a mechanism. It's just once you activate.
Okay, so is speaking potential or a mechanism?
That's a
it's an action.
No,
Speaking-
yeah, so but it defines the first 2 potentiality. So the first one you can understand.
You're saying
easier.
by comparison, by juxtaposition.
The first one is easy to understand as a potential. Second one not so easy.
Well,
because-
remember they're not in that order. The first one is in your mouth, then in your heart. So the second one is easier to understand as potential, whereas the first one, right? The first one is speaking, and speaking is difficult to place as potential because, for example, when we daven, one of the reasons that we're supposed to mouth the words rather than just scan the words is because we're told that mouthing the words makes it, it's speaking makes it into an action.
Yeah.
That's the halachic definition. Makes it into an action.
So each
So-
of those first 2 things ends up in the action.
Ends up in the action. Okay, good. So let's test
But
that.
the order's important.
Does it end up in the action? The
It's-
order is
You
important.
speak, which activates your heart, which activates the
True.
But it
True,
can
so-
also be the other way around because a thought sometimes comes before you speak.
That's the problem.
No,
So
hopefully a
next
thought
way-
comes before you speak.
I say mind.
Hopefully.
But in this case, it's the other way around.
Correct.
They
In
were
this
very
case, it's the other way around.
confusing.
Here it's saying speaking before
Then you-
before
you
thought,
thought.
right? Which we spoke about last week, right? Because the speaking represents the mitzvah of Torah study, whereas the heart represents the mitzvah of prayer. So you have to first study so that you have information. Without that information, your prayer is rather meaningless. That's why it's put into that order. But there is no guarantee that just because you think something, it will translate into a behavior. There's no guarantee. And there's certainly no guarantee that just because you speak about something, that it will translate into a behavior. Because quite frankly, all too often, people talk about things that they are not doing. And they preach about it and so on and so forth. So there is no direct causality between a thought and an action, or between words and an action. Okay? So, and yet what you have picked up on over here is that the word is la asoy soy. In order, right? La asoy, in order that you should do it. Now, you could read that as, if you think and you speak, you will do it. That's what you could understand it as. Or you could say, take the whole line, the entire verse, and conclude it with that word la asoy soy. The whole process of the whole verse is to get to la asoy soy, to do it. What does that mean? What does it mean? It sounds a little bit convoluted, right? Sounds a little bit abstract. So let's understand. Going back to Aunt Gertrude, yes?
We're going to have nightmares about it.
So, Aunt Gertrude, what I really want from my child Do I need my child to actually feel a deep, loving relationship to Aunt Gertrude? No. So what do I need?
A show.
Just change the
A show's not enough. A show's too
It's a faith.
superficial.
Get your child to change the attitude.
Their attitude. I need them to change their attitude. And in changing their attitude, all I need to do is get them to enough willingness to embrace, not in the physical sense, but in the conceptual sense, to embrace Aunt Gertrude enough that they'll actually embrace Aunt Gertrude physically. Okay? In other words, there's love and there's love. Not all love is equal. The other day, I think I told you that I had this whole discussion with this group where they wanted to know if Judaism believes in love at first sight. Where the answer really is, well, there's love and there's love. Before you can ask the question, do we believe in love at first sight? You first have to ask, what is love? You know, unfortunately, because of the way that we use language, we use one word to try to describe many very different experiences. So you could love coffee, you could love your spouse. Ideally, it's not the same love. It's the same word, but it's ideally not the same love, right? Because essentially, if you love your spouse like coffee, you're pretty much saying one dose a day. Right? Or you could say, I'm trying to cut down, right? So,
But you don't love the coffee, you love what the coffee does.
correct, you love the experience. You love the experience. Right? Well, again, to the same point. To the same point, right? Where you hope that the love for your spouse is not just for the rush that you get for the few minutes after you've had an interaction with your spouse, in the same way as after the coffee, right? You hope that there's something a lot more meaningful to it. The point being, there are different layers and experiences of love. And in this case, we're saying that love is supposed to produce a result. Because we're talking about love of Hashem. The objective of having love of Hashem is in order to create the nature of our relationship with Hashem. The kind of love that we're expected to have, that the Torah is talking about here, that is so accessible, is not consuming, tangible love like a tzaddik has. We're describing over here a different type of love. So let's understand what love that is. Okay, Ella, third last line on the page. Ella. So rather, instead of assuming that this very higher grade experience of relationship with Hashem is supposed to somehow be highly accessible to us, instead of that, when the Torah uses that defining word, la'asoisoi, to do it. What the Torah intends with that is that it's ha'ava ha'meviyah lidei asiyas ha'mitzvahs bilvad. To have enough love of Hashem that will motivate us to do. That kind of love is accessible. In other words, you could love somebody enough that you're willing to do what they would like you to do. Or you could love somebody enough that your whole life is obsessed with them. It's not the same love. And it's not that the one is good and the other one is bad. We're not comparing them in the sense of if the one qualifies as love or not. No, they're all love. The question is, what kind of love is needed for the kind of relationship that I want to have? There's a Rebbitzin who is famous for saying that no couple truly loves each other until they've been married for 7 years. And she often tells that to newly engaged couples. And needless to say, the newly engaged couples will look at her and think she's fallen from another planet. What are you talking about? Nobody loves my fiancé. Well, nobody loves their fiancé, I should say, like I love my fiancé. You don't understand. It's just so deep. It's just, we're soulmates. We just get each other. We just resonate with each other. From the moment we met, he just knew exactly what to say what to do to get me to feel cared for. And she was just so attentive and so caring. I mean, it was amazing. We've got this beautiful relationship. I go to work, I'm not even there for an hour. She's already phoning to see how I am. It's so beautiful, such love.
Christmas movies.
And of course, you know, those people who've been married for a few years say, just you wait. Because when you get phoned every single morning, when you've been at work for less than an hour, and then another hour after that, and another hour after that, you may not call it love anymore. You think you know what love is. You think you know what love is. Yeah, but you don't understand. You don't understand. You know, we'll do anything for each other. We love each other so much, we'll do anything for each other. If he had to phone me at such and such a time, I would be there. I would pick up his laundry. No problem. From the dry cleaners. Even though he forgot to do it himself. Because I love him so much. It's true, it's genuine. Is it love? It is love. We're not talking about some kind of superficial, ridiculous lust relationship. It's love. It's love that gets them to do things for each other. It's not the love that you see when a couple's been married for 60 years and the one can no longer live without the other. That kind of love they're not experiencing. That kind of love where literally the one spouse passes away within months of the other because they cannot live with each other. That kind of love you don't have when you're engaged. You're not expected to. It's not possible. It's not practical. But does that invalidate it? Does that mean it's not? No, it's love. It's love that gets you to do for each other. In our relationship with Hashem, a tzaddik has love, which is, I cannot live without Hashem. I cannot live without that connection. What's the value? What's the meaning of life? The Alter Rebbe himself was known to often say, I don't want Gan Eden. I don't want the world to come. I just want you. Referencing Hashem. That's another kind of love. That's a kind of love that is consuming. That is a love that is so overwhelmingly powerful that you don't have space for distraction, laziness, envy, temptation. There's no space for it. I'm consumed by love. King Solomon calls it Ki choilas ahava oni. I'm sick with love. We would call it today stricken, smitten.
God, he made how many wives?
You know, right? Love of Hashem, not love of people, right?
And love of woman.
So what is? That's for a tzaddik. For us, all we need to get to is the kind of love that says, I want to do what Hashem wants. That's all. That's all we got to achieve. And to reach that kind of love, that degree of love, that experience of love is absolutely accessible. Why is it absolutely accessible? Because, continue reading, Shehi Reusa Deliba Shebeta'alumois Lev. Because this love is what we call Reusa Deliba. It's the will of the heart that is embedded in the heart. Gam kiena beizgalos liboy kerish be'esh. Even though it is not experienced in this flaming, tangible love that the poets all speak about.
What is the last word?
Kerish be'esh. Like flames of fire.
Yeah, no, I didn't see
Like
that.
flames of fire. What does that mean? That means that not all love has to be experienced as poetry. Not all love has to be experienced as flaming. Not all love has to be experienced as consuming. You know, it's very interesting. In Hasidus, we talk about two kinds of love, and we've just alluded to it. We talk about love that is like fire and love that is like water. So the love within the family unit, parents to children, children to parents, siblings to each other, would you say that's love like water or love like fire?
Water. For me, it's fire.
Water.
1000%.
No, the part that's fire is not love,
Okay.
right? But the love within those relationships is like water. Why do you say it's like water?
Well, fire is very tempered. I mean, it's consistent. You love your children.
Correct.
no
It's
matter what.
consistent. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. It flows. Water represents flow. It's love that flows. Can it get damaged? Of course it can get damaged. But in its natural state, it's a love that flows. You don't, I mean, there are not that many people who they come home at the end of the day, oh, I can't believe my brother. Let me give you a big hug. It's like, oh, brother. Marriage is love like fire. Fire is unpredictable. Fire is inconsistent, like you said. You don't know what's going to happen. But when it bursts out into flame, it is extreme, much deeper than the love within the family unit. It's got this extreme version of love. So this ru'usa deliba, this kind of feeling inside the heart, this comfortable or dedicated commitment or love to Hashem that we have, that's more love like water. It's not the kind of love that is going to completely overwhelm you and, so to speak, to use the expression, take your breath away. It's not that kind of love. So how do you find it? How do you generate it? So he reads, he continues. To achieve that kind of love of Hashem, that's very accessible. V'nokel l'chol adam, and is easy for any person. You're going to love the next expression. Asher yesh loy moyach bekod kodoi. Any human who has a brain inside their skull, it's a good expression, right? Moyach bekod kodoi. Any human who has a brain inside their skull can achieve this love. Why? Because we said you can't tell somebody how to feel, right?
Mind first.
But you can teach somebody how to think. And there are certain thought practices that a person can use that generate this kind of love. And it's completely relatable. It's completely relatable because what happens essentially, let's think of the range of things that we come to love. I don't want to use the word fall in love, that we come to love in our lives. Not people. Let's leave people out of this for a moment. Even though it could apply to people as well. But let's just leave people out of this for a moment. What are the other things in life that people love? Let's say golf, right? There's a whole lot of people who love golf. For the life of me, I can't understand why, but there's a whole lot of people who love golf, right? How does that work? A person walks onto the golf course, they take a club in their hand, they stand over there by the driving range, and they're like, love at first sight. This is the most amazing thing, right?
Generally not love at first
It's
sight.
never love at first sight. It is the most frustrating experience for a long period of time. You hit this thing and the ball doesn't even move. All you do is you're chipping grass out of the, You don't even know how to hold the club. You don't know how to swing the club. That's why you see all these people in the middle of nowhere. They're doing this virtual swinging of the club because, you've got to get yourself into the... Can a person come to love golf? Sure they can. Over time. As they
Please
come to
love at first
appreciate
sight,
it.
Not for me though.
It's not love at first sight.
My-
You come to appreciate it.
My son would.
Right? Over time, you come to appreciate it. It's calming. It's social.
But calming,
It's in a
it's
nice
not.
environment. You come to love it over time. It is possible for a person to come to love something over time. What happened? The same thing is, for example, you could get into a particular writer where when you first read their stuff, you're not sure what you think about it, and then you start to enjoy their first novel, and from that you develop an appreciation. The appreciation becomes a form of love, where you love reading their stuff. And the same can be with an exercise routine, and the same can be with a particular meditation practice that you use, and it could be with the kind of technology that you appreciate because it does that, etc., etc. It is possible. There is a kind of love that a person with a mind can come to learn to appreciate, and that's what we're looking for over here. That there is a methodology that we could use, that we could apply to ourselves, that will help us to get to the point of having a love of Hashem that is dynamic enough to drive us to do what Hashem wants. That is Korov Ma'od. That is absolutely accessible. Right? How do we get there? So that we're going to have to do the next time, because I see I'm going to have to take care of her now. And so we'll pick that up next time, okay? But the principle is, we're not looking for love that just sweeps you off your feet. We're looking for love that comes from developed appreciation, and it is within reach, it is accessible for any of us to follow a method that will help us develop that appreciation so that we can have enough love of Hashem that makes it easy to do what Hashem wants. Okay, to be continued.